today.
Welcome.
Welcome. Wow, we have just got out of a big meeting,
Huge.
huge meeting. We are live. This is so fun.
It is fun.
Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Steve.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
So I'm Steve Schmidt, the CRO at Magnetic. I'll give you a little bit more, and then Melissa can introduce herself because you're probably here to see a little bit more of her. She's the new kid in town. Melissa, you've been with us for officially three and a half months, CEO.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about that today. But Steve Schmidt, co-founder, officially of Magnetic, with Melissa now. And the first year and a half or so, it was me. She was doing her thing on the sidelines. We're going to talk about that today because there's some other interesting things and how we came back into business and how really where we're at today, what we've learned along the way. And I'm going to get out of the way because, as Melissa said the other day, she goes, "You're the revenue guy. Make it happen."
I did say that, and I meant it.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Melissa Goodwin, CEO of Magnetic. I have been on board for 4 months now, maybe 4 months and counting. And it's been a wild ride. I've learned a lot. And you started Magnetic 24 months ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, a little bit more.
And so we're going to talk today about what we've learned, what we've tested, which is a lot. Even things that have shifted for us, everything from price points to packages and offers to the way we do our work and our own workflows. And some of the things that we struggle with as entrepreneurs and business owners and partners in business and life.
Yeah. So why don't we tell people what we do first? Because I think there's probably people out there who are like, maybe they either know us or we're in the feed or we're showing up. They're probably gonna be coming in slowly here.
Who are these people and
Oh
why
my
are
God.
they talking
Okay.
to
So
me?
what do we do? We're in the business. We work with companies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you the pitch. I'm going to kind of pull the lid back.
Pull it back.
We work with companies, typically CEOs who are a second or third time CEO, owner. They're not just a CEO and owner of the company, of the business. They typically put a little bit or a lot of it of their money on the line a couple of times, right? So they've probably failed before is what we've realized. And we don't talk about that, right? Because they're focused on what they're doing now, which is typically they're trying to grow their company from a point where they've hit a ceiling and they're wondering, like, I can't grow past this. That I call it the network effect. Like your friends have all bought from you. And then you got to grow from there. So how do you do that? Content, we do that on LinkedIn and YouTube. We do podcasts, micros, all sorts of stuff like this as well. We're big on events and bullish on that in 2025, ultimately to create revenue streams for them, right? Because we know content is a lasting effect. And we've seen it time and time again with our clients. We're going to talk about that today, some case studies. Melissa, what is the magic of what we do?
So I came to this work previously. I have a science and math background. I spent some time on the bench, spent some time in cold calls and selling, 3.5 years of doing that. I spent some time growing a SaaS product, a nationwide SaaS product for education. I've spent some time, a lot of the last 10 years, steeped in design thinking. So went through the IDEO course out in the Bay Area and have spent time in innovation and really growing new products and looking at problems from a design thinking perspective.
Yeah.
And so what's different about what we do, and you've got, 27 years of sales experience leading major sales teams in big Fortune 500 companies and companies of all sizes, really.
So really what you're saying is you did stuff that was completely on the other side of the fence as me, but also very much the same because you were developing new concepts by
growing
fleshing
new
out.
things. I always say I build new things. And so whether that was in education and it was education software or education products, to aging in place and helping create solutions for loneliness and isolation, or whether that was making a brace for an arm, or whether that was a digital tool leveraging AI for healthcare, always growing new things. And where we always got stuck, and this is why I joined Magnetic, was how do we get this thing out into the world? How do we get traction?
It's tough.
It's hard.
If it was easy, everybody would do it.
So I would come to you and you helped us and it worked. So that made me excited.
And I wish that had worked with everybody too, because I think that the hard part about what we do is there's a lot of components, right? When you're looking at like, okay, cool, help me with LinkedIn. Well, what do you really mean? So we'll back the truck up. So this is how someone comes into us. Typically it's a DM. It is the CEO. It is always usually the decision maker. And I think it's because that's who we talk to. So we know that's working, right? I think when it comes in now, When it comes in, it seems like they've arrived at this conclusion that they need to do something, and we are the only option
To
at
do
this point.
something different. And, here's the
Yeah.
thing, here's what we found. There's a lot of very promising tools,
Yeah.
and people get pitched tools or like set it and forget it kind of
We've used them
services.
all, haven't we?
And we have tried so many
Oh
of them, and
gosh.
I'm testing some right even right now. And here's the thing that what people miss, and this is why I think our experience and background is different. People miss the work behind the tool, making
Yeah.
sure you have the right list, the strategy around what list should we really go after, what
Yeah.
kinds of people should we go after, and how do we create multiple layers of outreach. And it's not just the tool that does that. You really need a strategy to understand who you're going after, why you're going after, common
Mhm.
points of connection, making the messaging work, and having
Yep.
all of these different outreach layers work together as a system.
And it we do it for a lot of different companies. So, like,
Yeah.
of course, we'd love to say, "Oh, we only do it for this and we're the best at that," but we also aren't that interested in just being niched down to one vertical yet. So I think let's talk about today. Let's just get if you're out there, by the way, on LinkedIn, please do chime in because we'd love to answer your questions. This is a ask us anything. So I'm going to kind of ask some questions here. Um, what are some? Give me an example of two different clients. You don't have to name them, right? But maybe like the size of and scope of what they do, and when they implemented this solution, like what were they struggling with, and what have you seen early stage, mid stage, late stage, wherever they're at, right? What have you seen that we've given value to them, right? And not a sales pitch, just like real life stuff.
I think it's people trying point solutions that are disparate across different platforms. I tried this for LinkedIn, I tried this for email, I tried a little bit of content, and none of it
Yeah.
worked.
Right.
And so I think what we do with them is really sit down and say, how do we make these things work together? And how do we do it in a cohesive, consistent way?
Sure.
And the beauty of the time that we spend on the front end is really using some of the design thinking, which we don't necessarily say it's design thinking, but it's digging into what is your customer thinking, feeling, saying, what are the words they use, and then we create systems around that.
Yeah. Well,
And that's what
I'm
works.
gonna dig a layer deeper, okay? Because we were just in a writing session last week. Sometimes they're very bullish on what we say, right? Or how we say it. And I think that when people do outreach, we're bullish on executives doing it. And we've heard some people say, I want to be careful how I say this because they're right. I don't want to seem salesy, right? Got it. We don't want you to be salesy either. Um, let's dig into the approach, right? Let's unearth a little bit of the magic. Like, what are we doing and seeing success with that other people probably aren't doing? And we don't have to bring up all the messages. Everybody knows the terrible robotic messages, but what are you, Melissa, with your design thinking? Think about like because I've seen it, right? It wasn't happening when it was just me here. It's how you think about approaching a conversation that is getting these responses to happen very early on and often. Talk to me about starts with the J, you know, 12 to 15 things in his inbox all of a sudden over the last week with people who would love to meet with this person. And without that happening, that wouldn't have happened.
I would say I think about it, and many marketers are comfortable or have heard of the term journey mapping. And when you think about buying a product, there is a
Mm.
journey that you go through. And usually it is I met somebody at a conference, they told me what they did, I ran into someone else said, and
I saw it on a billboard.
I think about even the person, the group that we just hired to do our website. And it was I knew that person, actually knew them for a long time,
Mhm.
forgot about it. And, I knew that I saw on LinkedIn that they had joined this company. I had a conversation, actually a coffee conversation with another person who said, "Hey, I used them." And
Boom.
jogged my memory, and then I reached out to them. So, if you think about how you make decisions and how you buy, we need to be, and that was multiple platforms,
Yeah.
right? I had them in my phone. I knew
Yeah.
I'd seen them in different locations. I'd had coffee with that person. I saw them
Right.
on LinkedIn, and then I had coffee with another person. So if you think about that journey digitally,
Sure.
we have to mimic that in some way with our connection requests and with our messaging and our nurturing campaigns.
Okay, let's okay. Real life here. I'm gonna give a perspective of what it is that we do the work. So we're not just talking conceptually. So
Yeah. So with that person,
this,
they
yeah,
had attended an event.
okay.
So we took that list and they've been posting
What
on
list?
we took the list of people that attended their booth at
Got it.
the event,
Yep.
and we sent a connection request that was like, "Hey,
On
saw
LinkedIn.
you at that event
On LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn.
Okay,
This is a different
I wanna
platform."
outline and make sure that they follow this.
Yeah, and then they had a second message that
Okay.
said, "Hey, we've got a lot of new products and services coming out this year. Tell me what's how business
Yeah,
is
don't
going."
care I love that. I don't care about the first one because that's what everybody would say. We."
Yeah.
Instead, they said, "What
"Tell me how business is going."
yeah, what are you seeing out there? Tell me how business is going." And opening up an open-ended question, like and that's when this morning I said, "I think it's just that." If we really had to say, like, what advice would we give to people? Ask open-ended questions.
Mhm.
Um, and if you think about it, you're probably like, "Yeah, that's what I do." But salespeople now, Melissa, this is the value of having you come in.
They're trying to funnel
We
you
don't do that.
into a
Yeah.
decision,
We're
right?
always trying to steer you down the cattle path, right?
Yep.
And you know this,
"Are
we've
you in
talked
or are you
about it.
out? Get out. I'm going down
It
this way."
it has
Yeah.
warped my thinking so much, I've had to go to, really understand it. I've taken it a little too far, but yeah, it doesn't have to feel like that. You don't want to feel that. You want it to feel as organic as possible. And by saying something like, "Hey, tell me what are you up to?" is a question people love to talk about themselves.
And buyers want to have the control over saying, "I'm interested in what you have." They
Yeah.
don't want to be pitched. So if
Okay.
you're talking with them and having a conversation and saying, "Tell me about your business. Tell me what do you guys," and they now have all of the power to
Yeah.
ask you
Right.
about the product, which is what they want. Like as a
Yeah.
buyer, you want control and buyers have,
Mm.
more control than ever. So let them have it. And but make sure that they know who you are and what you do.
Yeah. I like that you said let them have it. I'm gonna freeze there. We talked about this, and this is I like when people come from different backgrounds. Now, as many of you may or may not know, Melissa and I are also partnered in real life, right? So we don't just show up and like learn. Well, we do learn a lot about each other every day, but I
True.
know her favorite color. I
You
know where
do?
she lives. Yeah.
What is my favorite color?
Don't talk about this right now. It changes all the time. I know our son's favorite color right now is most definitely red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the one thing that we talk about. Yours can shift. I know you don't like to wear red. You look great in red. You don't
Thank
like
you.
pink. You also
You look like I love
she
the
loves
way
the
he
color
takes you down
blue.
this path where
A
you forgot
good
what the question
navy
is. He's really good
blue.
at
A
this.
good navy blue.
Mhm. I like navy, not my favorite color, but yes, you're close. In the very close ballpark.
Emerald green.
I like green too.
I know multiple things she likes, not just one.
Anyway, you're
Okay,
talking about what were we talking about?
let's go back to that we know each other differently, and so the semantics of working together and coming from different backgrounds. We hear a lot of people on LinkedIn say, like, "Do this, don't do that," right? Melissa kinda comes into it and goes, like, "Why would you do that?" Like, a literal question is, "Tell me why it is done that way." And she knows I
And
get
does it work?
and I go, "Oh god, I hate it because now I gotta talk about why I chose to do it that way." I have to prove that it does or doesn't work and get called out on the carpet sometimes. And I think that's been the best thing is having a second point of view that doesn't agree with me just out of the box, right? And that's kind of what usually when success starts,
The
right?
goal is not to call you on the carpet. The goal is just really to understand what's working and
Yeah,
what's getting results today. Because what may have worked even 6 months ago
yeah,
doesn't necessarily work today. So we're
especially on
constantly
LinkedIn.
evolving. Yeah, and we're
Yeah,
constantly evolving with the platforms that we're on. So whether that's LinkedIn or YouTube,
yeah,
we do a lot of work on that. One of the things we were going to talk about today is just even how our company has evolved from a pricing,
yeah,
offer, workflow, perspective over the last 24 months. So I do wanna make sure we get to that at some
yeah.
point.
Let's cover it.
So I would love to hear from you.
Yeah,
How did Magnetic get started?
yeah,
And what was the offer initially? And
yeah,
what do we do today? And
yeah.
how did that evolution happen? That's like a four-part
Mhm,
question. So maybe just the
mhm.
first part.
Magnetic was started because a previous company that I was involved in, Melissa was not involved day to day. We were married at the time. That company was called Title. We grew from zero to $480,000 a month in revenue in 18 months. My head got really big. My ego got really big. And we went through a disastrous M&A from both angles. I think, still a lot's learned from that process, right? But 2.5 years later, looking back, what it did is put me in a position where I had to, number one, go find work, right? Because that didn't work out. I was living alone because also, chose to kind of set the marriage on fire there and financial ruin, all the things like, but it level set me in a place where I said, if I could do anything, what would I do? And I'd say, I'd do the thing that I know how to do.
Yeah.
I knew how we grew, and it was not cold calls. It was not emails. It was LinkedIn content, and it was a ghostwriter, right? So,
Yep.
you know, here we are, right? If you had to go the evolution of the offer, now wind it back at first, the whole premise of me talking about it was really the idea that content led selling is the way to do it when you're one person.
So
Because,
tell me what, like, because content led isn't a term that everybody knows. What do
yeah,
you mean by that? What does that
so
mean?
marketing typically leads sales, right? The first impression you would get from Coca Cola should be marketing, or it's the reminder.
I see
Like,
a billboard.
sure,
What is that? It's
um,
what, that kind of a thing? Is that what
that
you're
kind of
saying?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, restate the question.
What is content led
Yeah.
selling?
So the selling part of it is so you're getting the reminder now. When I'm one person and I have a business from 1 to 50 million, I may or may not have a marketing part department. And oftentimes I'm selling and I can sell until I can't sell anymore. Till I can't get past that roof. And we get a lot of referrals, right? But at some point we're going to grow past that. And we need a system for that, which we already have. If you lead with content, you now have a marketing path that is naturally getting people placed in the pipeline. And so when they're ready, like you said, to come to you, usually they'll be in the mid funnel or bottom funnel where they say, hey, I've already thought about it. I've looked at it. I trust you. You're really the only person I see in the feed every damn day talking about this. So let's do this, and
Mhm.
that's was the idea of content led selling.
Yeah. So what has been some of the evolutions that the company has gone through over the last 24 months? What has
Mm.
stayed the same and what has changed?
Well, you're here now. I think that's the biggest thing. Like personally and professionally, obviously, there's a lot of things that develop there, and I think that is everything changed really. Because if I would have stayed the same, nothing would have happened. That's good. And so I think work wise, we'll stay on that for right now on the topic. But I think by understanding that I knew I couldn't build this alone. I knew also that I didn't quite understand how to get the unlock for our clients in a way that could scale. And I also knew I didn't have a lot more chances to fuck things up, if I'm being honest, right?
Because
Because I don't know if my heart could have handled it at the time.
yeah,
And so this needed to work out so badly for me at the time. Obviously not really, but it felt like it. So I think at that time, if I had to really peel into the jar, it was me going, I don't know how to scale this thing. I also can't do it alone. I also can't edit videos, write posts, program CRMs, make cold calls, film podcasts, be on podcasts, do this for much more than 6 months or I'll die, right? And so it was really about how much can I learn about all this shit I don't know anything about and create a company and then give value to other people by doing it for them
wow.
and charge them 10 to 15K a month and have no idea what the margin is and pay enough bills to be in business the next month.
Yeah. So over the course of that period, and I started advising Magnetic a little over a year ago, just from an
Yeah.
advisory perspective. Like, here, I think you need to think about this.
Mhm.
One of the first things, that I remember us talking about was like people aren't scalable
Yeah.
to the degree that a tool is scalable. So if we
Yes.
really want to grow this company, we need to figure out a tool. And you had been using some different tools, right?
Yeah, we also knew that we didn't have, we're not engineers, right? And we're pretty smart people. And even with AI, we knew we couldn't probably make a tool ourselves, and also the investment capital to go do that is significant. I think the good news is you were actively involved in that discussion way back then as an advisor, um, because that tool I do think is very important because we
Yeah.
call it what? The door knock, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we get people to not just rely on content? Because now we're call it marketing. We're sitting and waiting.
Right, and hoping that it works and reporting on
Nobody has time for that.
impressions,
Yeah,
right? So
nobody has
nobody
time for
wants
that.
to and here's the thing, and that I've learned this too in the big bad world, right? And marketing has a hard position to be in because you're asked to like get lots of eyes and then show exactly how it turned into sales. And sometimes those things, those attributions just are not visible to
Yeah.
all of us.
Caleb's got a great question for you.
Yeah. So I do think when we think about a tool, what we were thinking about was we need to be able to still do those posts. The billboards
Yeah.
are still very important. So you should still be posting and putting things out there. But you also need a back end way to
Yep.
knock on the door through the direct messages, through other channels to say hello,
Yeah,
right?
my watch just said hi to
So,
you.
I think that's really important. There was a question in the chat around, is content-led selling organic or paid? Would you like to field that one?
Um, for us, I think we define content-led selling at this point in time as 100% organic because that's what we do. So we would be lying if we said, "Oh, it's paid," because we have not yet had our content as paid. Now there's a very easy pivot for us into there, right? And that's top of
Yeah,
mind.
once you find those posts, and we've had clients that have had millions of impressions.
Yeah.
That's where I'd put my money. I'd replicate that, tweak those tweak those posts that
Yep.
get the most engagement. Impressions are important, but engagement's more important,
Yeah.
and put firepower behind that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, what our work really is, or get like what and partly is we're testing those messages in a wide public space.
Yep.
So then when we go in with those targeted lists and knock on their door, we're saying exactly what they want to hear. Because now
Mm.
we've tested it here and we know this has, 500,000 impressions. That
Yeah.
language hits, right?
So you said something I wanna key in on 500,000 impressions. A lot of people lately on LinkedIn have been, if you're like me,
Tanking.
like
Yep. Oh my God. It's
you're like,
heartbreaking.
"Wow, 112 impressions. My heart is broken."
2 likes. Yeah.
I've just had to kinda like we've laughed about it to a degree, right? Because you had like 50,000 all of a sudden on one of your videos, and I was like, "What did you do different?" You're like, "Don't know, don't know."
It literally was 4 days after I posted it, all of a sudden it just
Boom,
picked up, and
took off.
I don't like, part of me is just like, "You know what? You keep putting stuff out there, you see the language that resonates, and you do more of that."
Yeah.
And, here's
Talk
here's
about
the
that though.
real measurement.
That's new for LinkedIn.
The real measurement to me is I was in a meeting this morning with a group of executive women, and they say, "You're killing it on your posts. These are
Yeah,
amazing. Like, I love the content." None of them like, well, I shouldn't say none of them. A couple of them have
sure.
responded or liked my stuff, right?
And them refer to who is them, executive CEO women. Who
And
knows?
then another, or you get DMs that say
Yeah,
like, "Hey, can I how do I get started with you guys?" Or you get a reply or a text. Like,
yeah.
that's how you know it's working. That's the important part.
Mhm.
And that's where you just, I think it's easy to get wrapped up in those impressions number because it
Sure.
feels good, but
Yeah.
what is an impression?
Let's dial that down. So you said 500,000. I wanna really go into that. So, for me, what I've seen is with our clients, impressions does not equate to revenue.
No.
It simply doesn't. And as a matter of fact, I would say the people who are making the most money with us had a great run for 4 months. I mean, they were getting millions of impressions, and we said, "This will not last." And they said, "Yeah, we get it," right? Because nobody knew what was going on. And they got if you look at LinkedIn Mobile at the time, LinkedIn was trying something new where they would interrupt your feed with a, vertical into a horizontal, and they're not doing that anymore in the main feed. So that was like a stopper,
Well,
right?
LinkedIn is always testing things too,
Always.
right?
And of course, we would have loved to capture that, right? And then make a PDF and sell an ebook about it, right? Like, here's how you make a LinkedIn post viral. Nobody can do that.
People do that, by the way, and by the time you get the ebook, it's
Yeah,
the party's
yeah,
over,
yeah,
moving on,
yeah.
right? So
It just doesn't
good,
happen. So we think that the 200 people or 300 people, to your point, if you get that many on a post, it sucks. But if
like you
you
say,
fill this
that's
room up with
still,
400
yep.
people, oh my God, who are your decision makers? They're right there.
So the most important thing is not the number of impressions, and
Not
we
at
tell
all.
people all this all the
Not at
time.
all.
It is the list of people that you're going after, the list of people that you're connecting with, the
Hell yeah.
list of people that you're messaging, the list of people that
Messaging.
you are engaging with. Are you going to their posts and
Yes.
saying, "Hey, this is interesting"? Because I will tell you, there are certain people that keep popping up on my things, and I'm like, "Who is?" Finally, after like the 20th comment, I'm like, "Who is this person?"
Yeah.
And I click and check their stuff
Of
out,
course. Of
right?
course.
So I do think there are really smart ways to think about how you can
Yeah.
engage, and it is all about the
Yeah. You want to know
list.
what I love?
Gummy bears,
I do love gummy bears.
and you love, clothes and cologne.
This sounds terrible. I love gummy bears, clothes, and cologne.
And
My name's Tommy.
nature
Hi,
videos.
and I love wildlife videos. Am I a college kid who smokes dope in New Hampshire? This is terrible. Where's my boat shoes? Isn't my name Herb?
Uh,
Oh my God. That was great. Thank you. I love DMs. I love
you
DMs.
do love to live in the DMs.
That's how we met as a DM. Come on.
It's true.
It is
Well, it's not
true.
how we met,
We
but
we remet on a
it's how you operate.
not anymore.
Well, I mean, on the DMs, you do DMs for a living.
It is DMs are my specialty,
They are.
and I think that if I have 39,000 people, I don't care what LinkedIn does anymore with the algorithm. Guess what? Because I don't care. It's like me caring about who wins the presidential election. If I get too involved, I'm gonna have a heart attack. And so I just have to sit back and go, if I can DM people and get through that network of 10,000 people and ask everybody, which is what we're doing, is there anything I can help you with? How are you doing?
That list is the most important thing. So if we go back to magnetic and the shift, I think it went from originally like organic content led selling, which we still do and we still believe in very much. I
All
mean, a
in.
third
Yeah.
to a half of our business comes from that, from
Mhm.
our posts, from our work, right? On LinkedIn. So we believe in it. We've seen it work. We've seen it work for our customers. I think the other part is that automated tool.
Yep.
The and making sure it's not just the tool. Like people get too wrapped up in should I get this tool or that tool?
Yep.
That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is making sure you have the right list of people.
Yeah.
So if you are, if you're a fractional service person, like who are your clients? Who are those ideal customers? Who have you worked with in the past or who do you want to work with? Getting a targeted list and connecting with those people, engaging with those people, messaging those people. So
Well,
that's our offer really has changed and
yeah.
formulated around those
Yeah.
2 key things and video, right?
I think one way to look at what you just said in the same way and visualize it is, Melissa, would you rather spend all this time and energy creating a play and go on Broadway in front of 10,000 people who all love and adore you, or go into a studio theater and have 3 people show up and have one of them be the critic who is going to review your play on the front page of the New York Times?
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah.
And a lot of people would choose number 1. Why? Because
Feels good.
we all love that. It feels good to be validated, right? And a like is a validation point, and someone like me, I have to be very careful with that, right?
Yeah.
It can activate me in a way where all of a sudden that is my alcohol, fuel, whatever, because of my isms, right? So I would say also don't get addicted to them in business because it does not indicate you made something I want to double click into. Decision makers very rarely comment or like on a post.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, as we think about the work that we do and the offers that we've had and how it's shifted, it really is focusing in on getting the right list, which
Yep.
that is not easy work. And I will tell you,
Yeah.
anybody that says you can like set that and forget it has not done the work to see real results, but that makes all the difference in how you get responses and the engagement that you get.
Yeah.
So we do spend a lot of time with clients around that process,
Yeah.
making sure and honestly, there have been,
Yep.
I would say half the customers that we've worked with have pivoted in terms of like where they thought their list was and where it is now.
There's also a component I want to bring to light here. And I think it's important for everybody to think about this because this is the thing that people are going to ask you, but they don't want this to be the thing they learn about you first, I don't think. Depending on where they're at in the funnel is the offer, right?
Mhm.
Like, what are you offering them? What value can I get from Melissa Goodman? Because otherwise, why am I going to connect with you? Like, or why would I connect with you and then respond to a DM, right? It can't be what we see often, right? Which is, hey, we're the best. Um, you're not great at this and you should use us because then you'll
Mhm.
be great. It's missing proof. It's going right for emotion, right? But the emotion is, oh my God, you're making me feel terrible and I don't know you, right? And so I think what we try to do is open it up, warm it up a little bit. And going back to the open-ended question, like you can't have a call to action unless you ask a good question, right?
Mhm.
And I think we ask some pretty good questions. And
Yep.
naturally, if you go back to what you do, you're curious. And I think the design thinking element of what we do, if I had to really double click on the magic, it's that. And that is the luxury we have of your background.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so it just this is a little bit different direction, but I do think oftentimes there is a space between what people think they want and
Mm,
what they maybe need to get from a solution or what they
yeah.
really want from a solution. And part of the work that we do is kind of digging into
Mm,
so you think your customers want that. Have you assumed that or have you asked that? And how do we use their words when we're connecting with them?
mhm.
And I think that's a little bit of the pivot from where we've been in the past or where others maybe have
Yeah.
been when they say like Tell me the pain points, because pain points is one of those words that's like innovation, totally overused. People don't really know what it means. If I say, Steve, what's your pain point today?
Oh boy, which one?
Right? And you just pick something, right?
Um,
But is that
my hip.
really the biggest? If we were to sit and spend an hour talking about all the things and like categorizing it, mapping it out, we
And
would pick something at the end of that hour very different than what you just said off the
that's right.
cuff. And so that's the difference. And that's how you really spend time
Mm,
understanding what your customers need, what their biggest desires are, and what they want. Ultimately, our
no.
customers want to grow. They are stuck in some ways. They've
Yeah.
tried tools that don't work. And what they really need is the strategy and the horsepower behind the tool.
I don't know if I have anything else to say. That was pretty good. I was just like going to stand up and start clapping because I think
Yeah, I like it.
there's nothing about AI in there. And we certainly love
We use
AI,
AI. Yeah.
but we don't have AI bots, right? And so our software is not an autoresponder. I mean, what I love about it, quite frankly, is that as soon as someone responds, it's off. I
Yeah.
mean, it's up to you now.
S-
And I want you to talk about, do you ever experiment with, I know I do a lot of like message responses on my mobile phone. I don't do a lot of video. I can't think of the last time I did, but I do a lot of voice. Are you mostly, if you think about it, keyboard on Mac, phone, where are you DMing a lot of the conversations that are happening? Like, where are you at? Because obviously those are important conversations and you're a CEO and you got to still man the DM box, right?
Most of my messages are in the evening because it's after I've finished the meetings and everything from the day.
Okay.
After dinner, because I feed the kids,
Yep.
and then I'm checking to see, so it's on my phone. Almost all of it's on my phone, and I
Yep.
do, like, any wrap-ups and end of the work at the end of the day
Yeah.
between, like, 7 and 10 PM.
Monetize for mobile,
Yep.
right? In your DM.
If you're trying to reach CEOs and decision makers,
Yeah.
definitely evenings.
Time, yeah,
Yeah.
and I found evenings, I'm terrible in the evenings, like, and I don't wanna
You're
counter you, but I also find luck in the mornings.
Sure.
I think maybe men and
Both of
women,
those bookends, I
because
would
of
say. Yeah.
women unfortunately have a lot of things that they children need, and they typically lean on the mom in the morning, right? So maybe it's the men, I don't know. Maybe that's sexist of me to even say, but I do
You're
think
either a morning person or a night
there you
person,
go.
right? So I think either bookending early morning or
Well said.
evenings if you're trying to reach those
Yeah.
C-level folks, because during the day they are busy. They don't have
Busy,
time to look at LinkedIn
or even they might have time to look at one, but
between a meeting or they're
they don't
driving
have time to go
somewhere.
back and have a
Sure.
conversation with you that's meaningful. But to your point, this is the thing that I think is the biggest thing to think about for people out there. Don't blow your load on the first DM, right? Because you got content forever with these people. So if you go so hard, think about it like a
What if
dating
you need
app.
revenue though? Like there's and we have had clients like I need it now and they
Good.
just hammer it. What do you like how do you tell someone to slow their roll when they really need revenue today?
I don't know if I would tell them to slow their roll. I'd want to understand why. I would just say it doesn't happen that way. And good revenue comes
So
from content.
if you don't need us or a tool like this today, today's
Mhm.
probably the day to start because you will need it down the
You
road.
just need a system. I think that's what like,
Yeah,
everybody needs a system that works.
yeah,
We would love to have everybody as a customer. At the same time, that would be a nightmare, right? And
right.
I think we found our best customers are the ones who go like, "Hey, I don't have time to do this. I get it, but I want this to be one of the 2 or 3 areas I dump money into that I can predictably get leads where I can go, "Oh, yeah, that one came from LinkedIn." And, I think when you get down to attributing, like, exactly where it came from or writing posts to trigger people to buy is when it gets to be not so fun, and I've been there.
One of the things we just said we were going to talk a little bit about, and I know we don't have a ton more time, but we do want to cover this. We, for a while, were doing a lot of cold email.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your position on cold email today and how that like evolved?
Mhm.
We didn't start out doing cold email.
Yeah.
We did massive cold email for a while. And now we do still do email and email still does work.
Yeah.
What have you learned?
I think that back to the summer of 2024, I had a lot of nights sitting out on my deck just being like, "Oh my gosh." Like, cold email has gone down significantly in terms of the open rate and the reply rate, and it is only indicative of things we thought would happen. Google tightened up security. People are naturally more and more, quarantined to other boxes, and so the challenge is always to get in the inbox. So yet like another layer now on top of it, and for what we saw, the return was so much greater on LinkedIn. email can go big and wide, right? But
And it's
you're
expensive.
very generalized and you're going to a broad audience. And when we can't be specific, we don't write very well because like we're very good at talking about a specific pain. But if your tummy hurts, like tell me more, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's where I've seen people struggle is like, oh yeah, we have the best finance rates in town. Like, why don't people answer our DMs? I don't know, Johnny. Like,
Yeah, there's probably all kinds of things to unpack there, right?
yeah, like you can't pitch a first DM, get a response, and then close a deal. I don't see that ever happening. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
It is the opening of a door. It is the first meeting, and then they might go dark for a while, and you might secretly be pissed at them. And then they show up 4 months later and go like, "Hey, it's me again." You know, so I always now try and keep a very open door and never show those signs. Although I did kind of get a little pissed one time this year when we lost a deal because a guy really put me to work.
Yeah. So, largely LinkedIn. Tell me a little bit about, as we think about our offerings, podcasts
Yeah.
and video, and how that is evolving over
Do
this.
people listen to podcasts?
I do. I was telling you right before we started,
Yeah.
kind of obsessed with the telepathy tapes right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. The
Um,
election was, like, done by a
we
podcast.
both listened to Pivot
Our
and
parents are
Prof
even, like,
G.
accidentally listening to podcasts, they don't even know it, like, we have to trick them.
Yeah, what else do we listen to? I mean,
I
I
listen my top 3 are Prop G for sure, number 2, just slide in there whatever you're sending me that I probably should be tuning into, that
yeah,
is
I'd
either
love to
about
hear what you guys listen to.
parenting or relationships or something like that.
Okay.
But I like Tom Bilyeu a lot. I
Okay.
think Tom is I love his first principles thinking. I love what he's doing on LinkedIn. Big time. Tom is embracing LinkedIn along with like Chris Do, and he's part of like that movement of people who are literally doing their own LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And by the way, Tom does have a ghostwriter on LinkedIn now because he asked for one, and many people applied on LinkedIn.
Sure.
So Tom Bilyeu is totally okay letting everybody know I have a ghostwriter. I still say really cool shit that people want to hear, right? So I think that's also what we do. We don't talk about that enough.
Yeah. So I would say I think where we are today and what we're seeing a lot of today. So and we've seen a lot of those big podcasters now shift onto LinkedIn. Now you have Mel Robbins on
Yeah,
LinkedIn, Huberman's on LinkedIn, Prof G's on
that's right.
LinkedIn. And partly because they like it's nicer here. People are
Yeah.
nicer than they are on Instagram and TikTok and all
Amen.
those other places.
Yeah.
What that also means is it's getting more and more crowded. And when you have those big media voices taking over what
Yep.
used to be kind of a everyman platform, now we have to really niche down. And
Yeah.
that is why that list and
Yeah.
who you're going after and the work and strategy around that is probably more important than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Because you can't just say cool shit and everybody
Right.
high fives you, right? Like it just doesn't work like that anymore.
Well, you wanna hear a cool story?
I do. I love cool
There's a guy on
stories.
YouTube who had a podcast, and it came up as a short,
Yeah.
and of course, I'm like, "Oh, cool. This guy's interviewing Gary Vee," and it was something actually that I don't click on Gary Vee a lot anymore 'cause God bless him, he's amazing, but it's, kinda the same.
Yeah.
But I did, and I realized Gary Vee's on this guy's podcast, and this guy doesn't have a big podcast. And so I DM'd the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I just DM'd him," and he said, "I'd love to
That's
be on your
amazing.
podcast." He goes, "Nobody ever asked me." He goes, "They're too afraid." He goes, "I'd be on." He was on for 15 minutes. So this guy's got Gary Vee now rolling. One thing nobody talks about is like, why aren't we putting the top 500 influencers in a sequence, getting them on there? Because they're right behind that DM and
Mhm.
it's them. They're
Or their
people
assistant. So one person away,
sitting right
right?
next to them, right? And
Mhm.
this morning, for example, I messaged the guy from Soft White Underbelly. Like we're becoming Soft White Underbelly. We're becoming pals, right? And he's a big deal. Yeah, she should not be surprised about
What?
that.
I'm not surprised, but I'm also curious about the strategy. You can tell me more about that
Sure,
later.
but it's just these people are people, right? They're
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
And so when you message them and talk to them and you aren't trying to pitch them
Right.
and you're just saying things to them that are either like, "Hey, I really love your stuff. It's shaped my life a little
Yeah.
bit."
You do take big swings, and I
Yeah.
I love that about you. It's one thing, like, I remember we've been through Orange County many times and other places, and you'll be like, "Oh, there's that NBA basketball player," or
Yep.
that person from The Hill or what
I'll just like
show?
dap
Whatever
J.R.
show.
Smith in the airport, like
What and
Lauren
I walk
from the
by him.
Hills.
I don't even I'm like, "What? Okay."
Yep.
Oh, The Hills, that's
I'm
what it
very in
was.
tune with pop
And
culture.
Steve knows all the people, and he's like,
Yep.
"There's that person, there's that opportunity," and you take it,
Yep.
and
I'll
you're
go
like,
talk to
"I'll go
anybody.
say hi."
I don't care.
And you do. I
Yep.
love that. And I do think
Yeah.
most people are scared to do that. I just don't think about it because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, there's that person from whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, or get my orange juice."
Well, I
But
think
that's
that
cool.
is part of when it's the right time when you don't have a lot of time, right? And so, like, back to DMs is if I did that on every DM, nobody would respond. You're like, "Hey," it's but when I see an NBA player and I'm probably not gonna see him again, and they're like 6'10" walking through an airport, I'm gonna dap him,
Yeah,
and they do, you know?
they love it.
They're just regular people. Everybody's just regular people.
Are they?
No. But
All
at
right.
at the end of the day, they do respond to DMs when you ask good questions.
Absolutely. So, what would you summarize? We're kind of coming up in the last 5 minutes
Yeah.
here. What would you summarize where we've been,
Yep.
where we're at,
Mm.
and where we're headed?
Where we were was a one-person content agency that helped people sell, and it worked kinda, sort of, and not really all the time, right? There
You
was
were making
no
money, you were
Yeah,
paying the bills.
paying the bills, but I'm saying, like, reporting wasn't there. We weren't really serving the clients yet. Where that grew into was, overhiring again and almost going down the same bad road of like, "Oh, let's build fast," and really going down a lead gen path because people were wanting that, right? And so then cold email, some things became much more important to tick the box on appointments, and that doubled the revenue, but it almost sunk the company. Then you as an advisor, didn't say, "Oh, you should be doing this." You said, "Let me talk to the clients."
Get rid of everybody. It was one of the first things that I did.
It's true.
I just axed except for like one person,
One. Yeah.
and
She's still with us.
we do everything, and then it was like, "Okay, we can't do everything. Now we need some snipers."
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where we're
Picking
at
them up one
now.
by one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And we don't our team is great. We don't talk about them out
We
loud
have a
because
great team of snipers. We
yeah,
really do,
it's
and
and it
it's
gets
growing.
bigger every week. And it's amazing. And we're looking for an account director right now.
We are.
Oh my God.
If you're
So if you're
interested in being
listening,
account manager, we're looking for that.
yeah, manager, director, if you want to be a boss and help our clients get awesome results,
So
yeah.
where are we headed?
Here's where we're headed. I think you're going to take us into, I think our clients will feel that a big synergy with HubSpot and what we do with HubSpot, naturally with the integration on our software, but also just in how we look at data, and how we can control data to flow from there into magnetic mail, from there into newsletters, from there into LinkedIn, from there into YouTube, paid ads. And of course, that would make us more of an agency. And so we will be a agency that probably doing $5 to $10 million a year in a couple of years. And we'll have a video team and very lean, and a creative team, very lean, and a director team, and then rely heavily on snipers
Mhm.
to keep our costs down because we're expensive, because this stuff is really expensive to do.
Yeah, but it works,
It
and it
works very
works.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's something that from a professional
Mhm.
perspective that has been a struggle for us or things
Oh,
that we've
God.
worked through that have been hard?
Well, I think we talked yesterday. I think it is really interesting to be in business with somebody you are romantically involved with too. Um, because you always love that person. And it's easy at work sometimes to be like, I hate my boss or I can't stand that person. I'm going to go home and walk away from it. And as you know, like, we are not living together currently, but we will be probably shortly. And um, that creates an interesting dynamic. And we share children together. And I think it's hard for me in particular. I've struggled hard. And I want to get better at it with how do I separate those two things? How do I not look as you as my partner about something here and then apply it at work and be like, no, 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 you're the same person. And I think that's been a big thing for me to adjust to. It will pay dividends, but it has been hard for sure.
Yeah, and I think, so I was in a call a while ago where that we were talking about systems, right? And so
Mhm.
having systems that allow you to flourish as a person
Mhm.
in your private life, but also we're familiar with that in our public life or our
Yeah.
professional life, but not necessarily in our private life. So, what are the systems that you need in your professional life to do well, and then what are the
Yeah.
systems that you need in your private life to do well? Which I thought was really interesting because you don't always think about that as a person. What do I need to
Spiritual.
make sure that I'm
Yeah.
feeding my, my mind, body, soul, the
Yep.
things that it needs so that I can be a best person at home and the best person at work?
Yeah.
As well as getting all my projects done and things moving forward and things at work, we're used to those systems. So it is interesting to think about it from that perspective, which I
Yeah.
think has been a good growing pain for us as
Yeah.
partners in business and in life.
I
Well,
think,
thank you for
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just think that life gives you the lessons that you're willing to take. And if you're willing to take them, life gets way more interesting.
And if you see an NBA player in the airport,
Dap them. Step them up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been a great opportunity to chat with everybody on LinkedIn, share about the
Yeah.
things that have worked for us, the things that are working for our clients, where we've been and what we're struggling with, even as business owners ourselves. So glad you're here, and we look forward to doing more of these.
Thank you.
All
You guys are
right.
awesome.